Welcome back to Troubleshooting Agile. Hi there, Jeffrey.
Hi, Squirrel. And hi, Misha.
Hello.
So this is Misha Globerman.
Long time no see on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we'll put some links for Misha in the show note. But we wanted to come back and invite Misha because of a conversation that happened last week in our episode. And Squirrel, you might remember, I brought up that, look, there's people I know who are doing more fun things with LLMs. And I mentioned Misha as WorryBot. And you said, hey, maybe we can get Misha on. And here he is. So Misha, thank you for coming to thank you for coming to talk to us about WorryBot. Maybe for our audience, can you give us some intro into what led you to create the WorryBot? And you've got many things I think you've done with LLMs that are quite interesting. But I wanted to today maybe we can focus just on the WorryBot. What was your origin? What have you done? How are you using it? How's it going? And how does it fit in your world of LLMs?
Sure. I mean, how it came to be, and it's very new. We've just been using this for a couple of weeks, although it's an evolution, I guess, of different tools that we've used along the way. And by say we, I mean it's me and my small team. There's like 3 of us. And I think a thing that we identified was a problem for all of us on the teams was there's just so much stuff to keep track of. And I'm in a moment right now where we're sort of redesigning our team structure, and we've been working together for a few years, and we're really looking at what's working and what's not working in our roles. And the thing that we noticed was that one of the really pain points for us as a team was that there's just too much stuff to keep track of. There are too many. I have an executive assistant, and what I hear from her is that there's just more things than she can keep track of. And what I want her to just sort of worry about everything and make sure that nothing goes wrong. And for her, it's slightly overwhelming. And then sometimes, increasingly recently, things do go wrong, and then I get frustrated. I'm like, well, why weren't you worrying about this? And it occurred to me that this is the sort of thing that an LLM could do quite well. Because for me and for my assistant, for Sam, it's too much. It's just too much work keeping track of everything. But LLMs don't get tired of these kinds of things. So I thought, what if I could just build a bot whose job was just to absolutely just worry about every possible thing that could go wrong. So as an example would be something like just small things like you send a meeting invite out to an important client, and it's the day of the meeting, and you realize the client never accepted the meeting invite. And I'm like, oh man, someone should worry about that ever happening again. Or you tell a client you're going to send them something, and then you create the document, but then you forget to send it. And it's like, oh, that's really embarrassing. I wish there was someone who could worry about that every single day and make sure that never happens. And it's too much work for Sam, and it's boring work, and it's unpleasant work, but LLMs don't get bored. So what I did, so that was the idea. The idea was to build something that every day would go through all of our meetings and look through my calendars and look through my emails and worry about every single thing it could possibly worry about, and then send me a report. And then I thought, well, the first thing was I was like, well, I wonder what are the things to worry about. And I was like, well, I could think about that, but why would I think? I have a machine that can think for me. So I told the LLM, and I said, why don't you just we record all our meetings. So I said, go through all our meetings for the past year and make a list of every single instance where someone might conceivably have said, oh, I wish we'd caught that. Man, that's too bad we didn't catch that earlier. Just find all of them and summarize them and make a list of all of them and figure out how to stop them from happening. And that was kind of what we did.
So hang on, that's the key part there, the figure out how to stop them from happening, because the bot won't do that part. Or am I misunderstanding how you've built it?
No, the bot could actually plausibly figure out a lot of how to stop them from happening. So for instance, the bot would say, hey, I noticed that a thing that happened to you, I mean, as an example, a thing that happened to you one time was, a couple of times was the client, you sent a meeting invite to the client and the client didn't come to the meeting. I know, Squirrel, you may not know this, but the AIs are intelligent. And so the bot was able to think, well, I know how to do that. I could just go through your calendar every week and look for instances where people hadn't replied and tell you about them. So in fact, in most instances, I didn't have to tell the bot. What I told the bot was I said, come up with the problems, and having come up with the problems, come up with solutions. So it actually was quite good at coming up with the solutions.
This reminds me of a post-mortem bot. Go look at things that went wrong in the past and come up with some solutions and then make that part of the process going forward.
Yeah. And it also gave me some fairly interesting, it was a good consultant too, in that it sort of challenged my assumption a little bit. In that what I said was I assume there's lots of little things that are falling through the cracks. And those are the examples that I gave, were something like not checking that the client had said yes to the invite, or forgetting that I hadn't hit send on the email. But what the bot said was, the bot said the vast majority of the mistakes are all one pattern, and this will probably ring true for you guys, which is that it was just that accountability wasn't made clear in the meeting. That the vast majority of things that happened was someone said in a meeting, man, this should really happen. And then you never actually said whose job it was to ensure it would happen, and on what time scale, and what the next step was. And the bot said, you think the problem is lots of little human errors or technical things, but it's actually just poor hygiene around commitment, which is interesting.
That's great. I think Squirrel, one of our very early episodes was about this, and I think we called it something like the magic phrase, and that people would say, "Well, this, someone should do this. We should fix it," and then act like magically that was fixed.
That's right. And so part of what the WorryBot does now too for us is the WorryBot also acts as a coach for me and my team, which is after every meeting, it gives us feedback on that. It says, hey, by the way, these were the 3 things where you said this should happen, but you didn't say who was going to do it. And be more careful about that next time. And in some cases, we have to act on it immediately. In some cases, it's just useful to have the feedback so that I will get better at it. And we've already, just as a result of the WorryBot and other tools, gotten better at doing that. So it doesn't just work with us and our foibles. It also helps us be better, which is something I think people, it's a bit of a tangent, but I think something people keep saying about AI is that it makes you stupider. But I think if you use it well, it can make you smarter too. So a lot of what I use AI for is to coach me on how to be better in my meetings and stuff like that.
Do you have an example of that where you say like, oh, this is a place where a bit of advice that the bot gave us that made us better?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm in this stage now with my team where we're really renegotiating everybody's roles and stuff like that. And a lot of that came from I had the bot, we'd had some early meetings about it, and I had the bot go through it, and I was like, what are you noticing there? And the bot was like, you've been doing a terrible job on this. And I was like, I think I'm pretty good actually. But the bot really pointed out, unprompted, like, you first said that you would devote time to this like a year and a half ago, and you keep saying it and you keep not really doing it. And you have said that it's been over 2 years that you've been saying you're going to renegotiate this person's role, and you haven't really done it. So that's been really helpful feedback. And then that's like on a very large scale. On a smaller scale, I have it come into almost all of my client calls, and it knows what I want to be like. So it will say like, oh, with this client, you're trying to be more directive, but you like let them ramble for like 6 minutes there. And the way you finally intervened in this way was really good, but you shouldn't have let them ramble that long, It'll do things like that too. And all of those I find very helpful.
Does it have misfires? Does it get the wrong answer or give you incorrect coaching?
Yeah, for sure. But so does a human coach.
Agreed. I'm not criticizing in any way. I'm just
yeah.
wondering if you're encountering misfires and difficulties like
that.
Yeah,
they are. It does it less and less is what I find. And I think one of the things I like about coaching as a practice is I don't mean to diminish the problem of hallucinations or inaccuracies. I think it's really important. And one of the things I like about advice as a function for the LLM is it doesn't matter. Like, getting advice that's only 85% good is amazing. Like, Squirrel, you were my coach for a while. I didn't take all of your advice. Jeffrey, you've given me advice. I take some of it. I don't take all of it. So if someone gives me advice that's only 85% good, that's kind of fine. Like, I feel like the point with advice is for me to take judgment, to exercise judgment with it anyhow. So, but it definitely does get some things wrong, or sometimes it gets things that are like just based on, there'll be hallucinated background even. It's like, this client told you they wanted X, Y, and Z, and it's like, no, they didn't, Again, that happens less and less. But there's some things where the hallucinations are a huge problem. Like, for instance, I still don't use the LLMs to track my action items in meetings with clients without a human in the loop, because having only 85% accuracy on tracking my action items with meetings and clients is not acceptable. But having advice that's 85% good is great. So a big part of the use of LLMs is figuring out where you can accept that success rate and where you need a human in the loop and all of those kinds of things.
I think it's interesting, Squirrel, to contrast this with the problem you brought up last week of people who were, having an LLM create something that was passed to another LLM to act on. And essentially, I think maybe there's some element here of the execution without the human in the loop, without the advice. It was sort of just all very mechanical. This seems like the kind of very much the opposite of that. Does that seem right?
I'm not sure because the thing about the LLM talking to the LLM problem is that the no humans ever got to have a difficult conversation, and this seems like a very good way for Misha to have a difficult conversation with Misha, and maybe her people in his team to have a difficult conversation, perhaps with him about he's yeah, they've noticed also that he's not act followed through on certain things. I think if it prompts a human conversation, I'm all ears. I think it's really interesting, and that's how Misha describes using the WorryBot. The way my client and some other folks that I've seen were using the LLMs was as a substitute for conversation, and the result of that was very bad. So that's the contrast I would draw.
Yeah, and I think is it because they use it? Is the idea that the LLM will like resolve conflict for them magically? Is that the idea, Squirrel?
If we just have the LLMs write all these documents, then we don't have to read documents. In fact, we can have the LLM summarize the documents for us, and then we can read that, and then we'll know what kind of issues are coming up and what actions we should take. But we'll never actually have to talk to the people on the other side, because that would be difficult. And of course, Jeffrey and I think Misha are not big fans of that. Don't avoid the conversation by having a bot do something for you. Have the bot prompt you to have a better conversation.
One thing you mentioned there was Misha having a conversation with Misha. So Misha, maybe you can answer this. To what extent are you in dialogue with the bot? In which cases is it about the value add you get from thinking through by yourself? To what extent is it in conversation with the team? How would you divide up the value you see across those kind of different scenarios?
Well, I guess there's different things. I mean, I'm not. First of all, I don't think a conversation with a bot is just me in conversation with myself. I disagree with that. Like, I'm alone, but I don't think it's any more a conversation with myself than if I'm reading a book. I'm in a conversation with myself or whatever. I mean, I think the bot definitely brings new insights and it's drawing data from what everyone said. So that's one important thing I think with the difficult conversation part is that all it has access to basically is like what was said in meetings. So in terms of just the mutual learning model or whatever, there's clearly, if there's lots of stuff on the thought side of someone's left-hand column exercise that aren't said out loud, that's just missing. So Squirrel, I agree with you like completely. Yeah, if that data's not there, the bot can't work with data that's not there. Jeffrey, and your question in terms of, I mean, we're still, to be clear, my team are having many meetings where we're talking through the challenges that we're having. My experience is that the presence of the LLMs is accelerating our ability to do things like discuss undiscussable issues with each other.
Great.
It's not reducing it,
Excellent. I find other people aren't as good as you, Misha, at doing that.
Oh, for sure.
Other people don't get that kind of benefit. So I think we should be talking more on this podcast about how to get exactly the result Misha just talked about. Because I bet a lot of our listeners are saying, yeah, actually, I'm talking to fewer people these days, and I'm talking to more bots. If that's the case, then I think you're missing something. You should listen to Misha.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that you could ask your LLM then is to your LLM, whoever you are, all your listeners, your LLM knows the mutual learning model, and if your listeners are that, you can put the LLMs on your meetings and ask the LLMs, hey, what are instances in this meeting where you feel like I haven't been in the mutual learning model? What are instances in this meeting where you think I might not be raising? Because the LLM definitely also points out to me, my LLM knows about the mutual learning model, so even though it can't read my thoughts, it can notice where from the outside it looks like I'm dodging an issue, and it will tell me. And it will tell my team members too. So if you're someone who wants to be in that model, you can have the LLM specifically ask it how to be more in that model. What are instances in that conversation where it looks to you like I might not have been in the mutual learning model? And it'll tell you, and it'll do, I think, a fairly good job on that in most cases. That's the kind of thing I think LLMs are actually very good at. And unlike a traditional coach, say, like I've coached people on using the mutual learning model, a thing I generally can't do with people is be present for every single minute of all their meetings. But Claude will happily be there for every single word you say in every meeting. Coach you on it if you want that level of coaching.
I want to come back for a second here, just on the WorryBot, and it sounds very sophisticated. So for people who are thinking like this sounds a really interesting, good idea, like what are the table stakes for someone if they want to develop their own WorryBot? Like if they have these concerns, what do they need to make true for themselves or their company for a WorryBot, and how much effort did it take you? Like what allowed you to take this step, I guess?
Right. I think the biggest thing is mostly just having it connected. Like it's letting it have the data. So I think the most important breakthrough for me in my use of Claude was just like that we record all of we happen to use Fireflies, but you could use Granola or Otter or whatever. But having, or Zoom, whatever, Notion, but having a tool that gets transcripts of all your meetings, and I think it's important that be transcripts and not just summaries and notes. For me, having a tool that has transcripts of all your meetings and making sure that Claude just always has access to them. So you're not like downloading them and pasting them in. It's just that Claude can get to that stuff. Or however it is you communicate. Maybe if you're a team that like communicates mostly through Slack, then it's having Claude have access to all of your Slack. So for me, it has access to all of my meetings, it has access to all of my emails, it has access to my calendar, it has access to my to-do list. So the most important thing for me that stands between the model being really smart and really not smart is letting it have the information that it needs.
So that's the table stakes. You need to have capture the data, and even like recording all the meetings. Like that's something that not everyone does. And I remember making this prediction over a year ago that having those recordings is actually very useful for the humans as well. And maybe this is something where we'll do it, because it'll help the LLMs. It's good that you're saying, yep, this actually helps the LLMs to have those recordings and have that data.
I think it's like the most AI prescient thing that we did on our team was I think I started doing that like 4 years ago. And I was like, at some point, this is all going to be so useful. And the difference between, and the thing about the LLM is the LLM doesn't care how good the data is. It just cares whether the data exists. So like for a human, having 100 hours of unsummarized meeting notes is like almost useless. But and for an old-fashioned computer, it's useless. For a computer 5 years ago, it's useless too. But for an LLM, that's great. You can just put that into an LLM, and you can do anything with that information. It can turn it into structured data of any sort that you want because it has intelligence and infinite patience, basically. So yeah, having all that data is really important. The thing I'll say is that in terms of the stakes for doing the work, the actual I am not I used to be a software developer 20 years ago, and I was a very junior one at the time. I have almost no technical skills. And I would say actually building the bot was like, I honestly want to say like less than 15 minutes of total effort on my part. Like maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think a really big part of it, like the models are so good right now that like I think what makes me smart at this is constantly stepping back and being like, wait, could I have the AI also do this? So I think the mistake someone else might make would be like, I'm going to identify the 15 top failure points and be like, no, I'll just ask the AI to do it.
Don't do the bot's work for it. Yeah. Make sure that you stop early.
Yeah, it's not hard. I use Claude Code. I use Claude Code on the command line, but you could probably just even do it from the desktop interface now. And yeah, let it just build the thing and fix it. Because that's also a big change, I'm sure, is that like actual building is cheaper than speccing now. Like I'd rather just have it build the thing and then tell it what to change rather than trying to get the spec right. 15 minutes of my spec time is more expensive than 100 hours of Claude's coding time, which is a real shift.
And then you said iteration was the important part. So you got something, you did this in 15 minutes, but importantly you had all the data. You told it what you wanted. It went and created something, and then you can then say like, okay, there's value here. I'm going to develop it further. And how much time do you think since then you've put into refining it?
I mean, we were just using it for a few weeks, so we're fairly new in it, but I mean, less than an hour.
Okay. So I wanted to get a sense there of bounding. So you're like, yep, this is evolving, it's iterating, but you're talking about 15-minute increments. It sounds like you can do or less. You're getting a lot of value and iteration with not a lot of additional expense in trying in these experiments.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it again is like ask it how to solve the problem. So it would identify a worry, and I'd be like, oh, how can I just tell you I want to now tell you to dismiss that worry. What are 5 ways to do that? And it's like, well, you could send me an email, or I could give you a web form, or you could do it this way. And I'm like, great, just can you build all of them? Again, like, just build all of them and I can play with them all, and then we'll just use the one that works. It's like, okay, thanks.
This is the return of set-based engineering. There's many possible solutions. Let's just build them all, and then you can try them and see what actually sticks and what you like.
Yeah, I don't have to spend 5 minutes deciding how to do it. You go write me 10 million lines of code and come back, and I'll look at them when I'm done. Yeah, it's great.
Misha, I'm just going to ask you one sort of selfish question before we close, and then I think we're going to have you back to talk more about how you build these things, and I think you have a whole zoo of them. So we want to hear more about it. But I just want to check this. When I want to get the results out of the bot that you've created, when I want WorryBot to tell me, hey, Squirrel, do this differently, do I have to chat a lot with it and ask it a whole bunch of questions? Does it kind of pop it up on the screen for me? How do I see it?
So what it does right now is it sends me by default every day at 8 in the morning, because I'm a late riser. It just sends me the WorryBots report. But also at any given moment, I can just pop into the chat and just say like, hey, can you write me a report? And then 10 minutes later, I have it. Is that what you mean?
But what you don't have, yeah, that is exactly what I mean, because I happen to be writing a book about AI right now, and the thesis of the book is you don't have to chat to get tremendous value out of AI. And so what you're not doing is saying, now, I'd like you to consider what I said in the first half of the meeting and tell me about that. And oh, yes, that's a really good insight. And now tell me about the second half. And didn't I do this? And how's that different? You don't have to do a lot of interacting. You've done the interacting in that 15 minutes and then the hour of refining, and you get a report, and you don't have to know that it's an AI, in fact.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the interface with which I interact with it is not a chat interface. That's correct. Although there is also, I also have a chat interface. So there's also a chat interface where I can go in and tell it things like, hey, take out this worry got resolved, or remind me again about this worry, or things like that.
Exactly. In my book, I call it the Star Trek interface, because it's like when Captain Picard just says, tea Earl Grey hot, and it appears. And that's a nice interface. It's nice to do that. But it's also nice to get an email and you never had to say anything. Or, if the bot just knew to make tea for Captain Picard every day at 8. And that's how you've set this up, which I'm really pleased to hear. That's really fantastic.
That's the whole point.
We've hit the time that we have for this week's episode, but Misha, let's make sure we have you back soon, because I think there's lots of threads here to pull on. What are your other bots? How do they talk to each other? How did you set this up so that it sends you the message every morning at 8? What was involved in that, and how do you run it? I can think of about 10 more questions that we could ask you. Would you be willing to come back again another time, another week, and talk with us about that?
Yeah, I've got lots of time because I have bots worrying about things for me. All the rest.
Excellent. Sounds super. Listeners, if you're very worried about WorryBots, or if you think that bots are not good at worrying, or you've tried it and failed, or have a different perspective or a different way of doing things, we love hearing people who disagree with us. That's one of the best ways to have a difficult conversation and learn things, as we've just been talking about. So if you're interested in getting in touch with us, the best way to do that is on agileconversations.com. And on there, you will find our book, Agile Conversations. You will find lots of material on how to have a difficult conversation. It doesn't talk about bots. We didn't have them yet, but we do have conversational dojo materials and lots of other free videos and stuff like that, all of which you could put in your bot, I suspect, and get lots of interesting stuff out. If you want to do that, please do. And then you can also, of course, get in touch with us. We have Twitter and email and Instagram and lots of other things. And we check all of those, and we really like hearing from our listeners. Now, I'm going to tell you how else you can keep in touch with us. But first, I want to find out, how could people get in touch with you, Misha? Because you do all kinds of very interesting things beyond the WorryBot. Where's the best place to find Misha?
My name is Misha Globerman. If you spell that any way you want and type it into the internet, you'll find me. I'm on X. I have a Substack. I have a website. I'm the only Misha Globerman on the whole internet, so you can find me there.
Wonderful, excellent. You're unique. I haven't found another Douglas Squirrel except for the kind that run around in trees, but that's another story. At any rate, we'll have that in the show notes as well, of course, so that people can find you and find out all the other interesting stuff you do that is either a different AI or completely not AI related, because Misha's fantastic on the topic of conversations and coaching and lots of other very good topics. Right. So, of course, the other way to get in touch with us, keep in touch with us, is to come back again next week, when we'll have another episode of Troubleshooting Agile. Thanks, Jeffrey and Misha.
Thanks, Squirrel.